We appreciate you keeping us a part of your day here on WCPT 820 AM, HeartlandSignal.com, WSBC 1240 AM, Chicago, and on YouTube at the Sports Cubicle. I'm your host, Mike Mercado. And just a few days ago, John Wall announced his retirement from the NBA. And it has just been a few of those months for a lot of basketball fans of a certain age, seeing some of their favorites leave the game. And just around the horizon, we're going to see LeBron officially retire from the NBA. But a few months back, we found out Derrick Rose was officially retiring from the NBA. And some news broke that I think a lot of basketball fans of a certain age are very excited about. And I think a lot of Bulls fans of another certain age are confused about. And it is something that I have been calling for, you could say, or I've acknowledged was going to happen. And this comes to us from SI Bulls. Logan Struck. Derrick Rose's jersey retirement sets historic benchmark for Chicago Bulls. And you can check this out at SI Bulls. The Chicago Bulls made a huge announcement on Thursday as the franchise is officially putting Derrick Rose's jersey in the rafters of the United Center. The Bulls will be ascending Rose's legendary #1 jersey on January 24th, 2026, as the Bulls host the Boston Celtics. This would be a huge Eastern Conference matchup regardless of their circumstances. But now everybody will be lining out the door to see Rose have his touching moments in Chicago. The Bulls are one of the most storied franchises in the NBA, headlined by their 6 championships in the 1990s, with Michael Jordan, Scottie Pippen, and Phil Jackson, along with company leading the way. However, January 24th, 2026 is said to be one of the biggest nights in franchise history. The article also continues, Rose's jersey retirement game is now the most expensive ticket in Bulls home game history, with a current get-in price of over $300. Via NBA Central, the get-in price for Derrick Rose's jersey retirement game is the highest ever for a Bulls home game on TickPick. The previous record was Rose's last game with the Chicago Bulls in the 2015 playoffs versus the Cleveland Cavaliers. And you can check out the rest of that article over at SI Bulls. Derrick Rose's jersey retirement sets historic benchmark for Chicago Bulls. And you know, it's interesting because I've heard a lot of different opinions on whether or not the Chicago Bulls should retire Derrick Rose's jersey. And on its face value, I think there's a legitimate argument or there's a legitimate discussion that you can have against it. But I think when you really just break down the context, when you don't do the first take or sports television way of doing a argument conversation, the sports debate, the barbershop, when you really just have a nuanced conversation about it. We're talking about a basketball player who was born and raised in some of the toughest streets in Chicago, went to Simeon High School, an institute in basketball, wore Benji's number, one of the most important numbers in Chicago basketball lore, goes to Memphis in college, goes to a national championship, damn you, Mario Chalmers, in a unlikely of unlikely scenarios, is selected by the Chicago Bulls because of a miracle during the draft lottery. You're rookie of the year. You're in the NBA playoffs. You have an amazing series, an exciting series, an all-time series against the Boston Celtics when they were at their peak powers. Then you are MVP. And along the way to the MVP, you're having some of the most amazing highlights, including one of the most spectacular dunks against Dragic in Phoenix. You're the MVP. You have game winners after game winners against Milwaukee on Christmas, against the Lakers, against the Knicks. You are making plays that nobody has ever seen before. You are on the highlight of every social media at the time. You are on SportsCenter's top 10 consistently. And when the big three are put together, you are the one that is put on the face, as on the front line, to be the one to try to take them down. And you get to an exciting Eastern Conference Finals. And then the next year, you tear your ACL. And it's just injury after injury after injury after that. but you continue to show your grit. And along that moment, the franchise kind of turns on you and they really get behind Jimmy Butler, and the fans kind of buy into some of it. And little did we know that there was just a lot of miscommunication, that things weren't handled the way they should have been when you're dealing with a superstar, dealing with that type of injury. But even after that, you still find a way to play in this league. And in 2015, you come as close as you're ever going to get, taking a Cavaliers team that has Kevin Love, Kyrie, and LeBron, and make a great series out of it. A series that a lot of people thought was the true Eastern Conference Finals. And you still, injuries happen. But even when you leave the Bulls, you find moments of greatness that cement yourself in NBA lore. Hoopers who hoop know, right? With Minnesota, with the Knicks, with the Cavs, with the Grizzlies. You're making grown men cry, not in the stands, but on the court itself. And somehow you gracefully leave the league with your head held up high. That's the story of Derrick Rose. Controversy off the court, right? We got into his private life a little bit amongst there. But that's a pretty damn good story. Amongst the accolades of Rookie of the Year, playoff appearances, All-Stars, All-NBAs, MVP, one of your favorite players. And if you want to talk about what he did for the franchise, sellout after sellout after sellout after sellout at the United Center. Do you remember the Tim Floyd era? Do you remember having to count on Marcus Fizer? Eddie Robinson? I loved the Scott Skiles, Ben Gordon, Lou Aldane, Kirk Heinrich era with Ben Wallace. Did you feel the same way about that era that you did when Thibodeau is here coaching Derrick with Joe and Boozer and Dang? It was a different time in basketball fandom in Chicago after the last three-peat. It was a hellscape for a lot of people. There never was the kind of excitement. You couldn't find that excitement for the Bulls until number one was playing for his hometown team. He legitimized your franchise again. Think about this team post Jordan and post Rose now. What would you give as a Bulls fan to have those years back? In a franchise that had Scottie Pippen, Dennis Rodman, Phil Jackson, and Michael Jordan, with Love and Sloan and Krause and all these different great names that are up there in the rafters. You know, you think about Dennis Rodman. Derrick Rose culturally was just as impactful, other than Michael, of course, right? Think about it. The Christmas commercials on ESPN, when they're all shooting the three-pointers, Durant and LeBron and Steph and Paul and Derrick is in that commercial. The Adidas shoe, the deal in China. Think about him sitting next to Kobe Bryant in a 2K commercial. A 2K commercial that, you know, is just right there on the internet if you want to watch it. And you're seeing these two bond. And you're seeing them go and riff off one another. And you know the love Kobe had for him. You know the love that LeBron had for him. You know how much they respected Derrick Rose. So if you're asking, is he deserving of having number one put up in the rafters? I think without a shadow of a doubt he does. The question is, can we ever get over the what if? Because we've seen the ending now. The ending is you didn't win a championship, but you have a lot of great moments, a lot of exciting games. And it ended with number one being raised in the rafters. I was there when Chris Chelios got his number retired, and it was great. Another hometown experience. I can only imagine what the atmosphere is going to be that day, and especially against Boston. So I want to know your thoughts. Derrick Rose to me is part of my childhood, in high school, freshman and middle schooler, hearing about Derrick Rose, seeing him ascend, being one of the only people that was pro Derrick Rose and anti Michael Beasley, no hate on Michael Beasley, and for it to actually come through, I think there's I got a lot of love and a lot of fandom for Derrick. So I think this is great news, but I want to know your thoughts. Leave a comment down below if you're watching us on YouTube at the Sports Cubicle, here on WCPT 820 AM, Heartland Signal, WSBC 1240 AM, Chicago. We're here on the Sports Cubicle and Sports from the Couch. I'm your host, Mike Mercado.